Scientists have been waiting for the next emerging virus, and this new strain of coronavirus is essentially a cousin of another emerging infectious disease called SARS that hit China and other countries starting in late 2002. For a long time, researchers thought these coronaviruses, which is what the new virus is, were basically not very risky. They thought they mainly caused a common cold, and it was kind of a backwater of disease research because they didn't think they made people very sick. SARS was a new coronavirus that killed people. The death rate from that was about 10%. That prompted a worldwide hunt from where these new viruses were coming from and how they were spreading into people. What they found is that a lot of these new coronaviruses seem to come from bats. Bats seem to harbor huge numbers of coronaviruses. One of the top coronavirus experts in the world is right in the epicenter of Wuhan. She helped sequence the virus right away and also showed it was almost identical to this bat virus she found in a cave a few years ago.
Bats were also believed to be the source of the SARS, MERS, and Ebola outbreaks.
I am here right now with Michael, the bat guy.
Goodness.
I wish there was a better name for you. How many bats have you eaten in your life?
Probably, if I can count, like more than 100.
Did you ever get sick?
Nope.
The eating of bat here is much more common than I expected, but that doesn't mean it's always safe.
What is the risk of eating this?
You could, right?
Die.
Yeah.
There are reports of bat lovers contracting Ebola.
How many people have gotten Ebola from the bat?
Paniki.
Never.
Never.
If you're eating a well-cooked bat, if you boil it, it's 100 degrees, of course the virus will be killed. But that's not the issue. The point. The point is that who trade the bats and who slaughter the bats, these are the people exposed to the virus.
I heard this market was wild and it does not disappoint. This is dozens of bats here. They have a whole pile of bat wings. You can see he's kind of butchering a little bit the bat. Is it yummy? I gotta try this bat at some point.
Direct spread of bats to humans are very, very rare, okay? You have to get a bat scratch or bat bites, that's very rare. So this is the bats transmit the virus through animal eggs. If we don't treat live animal eggs, then the chance of bat spread to human is very, very diminished.
Professor Liao Poon is a virologist at the university and was among the first to decode the SARS coronavirus.
I would believe that this Wuhan outbreak was caused by animal virus, and then the animal actually carried this virus and spread to humans.
The coronavirus that causes SARS was traced to the civet cat, a wild animal considered a delicacy in parts of South China. After the SARS outbreak, China outright banned the slaughter and consumption of civet cats in 2004. But 15 years after the ban, in this market in southern China, civet cats are seen lying inside cages, and this stall keeper says he is selling them.
In the years after SARS, the Hong Kong government has taken extensive measures to promote public hygiene, hoping to avert the next pandemic. But Professor Yun says it's only a matter of time.
SARS is horrible because it's acute, and also the mortality is around 10%. It will come back if you open up all the wildlife markets in China again, and you can see that things always repeat itself.
Now, Chinese scientists say pangolins could be the middlemen, but their research hasn't been made public yet.
Pangolins are the most trafficked animal in the world. They're basically like an armadillo with plates. So they've got these really long scales, and those scales are prized in traditional Chinese medicine.
Pangolins have been high on the menu for a while. Whatever it was an animal. It jumped from an animal to a person.
Does the virus transmit into humans through people eating these animals or just handling them?
Probably the highest risk during the handling process, where you have animals under stress, therefore their immune system is down, and then through the handling process, including slaughter, that's when the highest risk of jumping from animal to humans would have occurred.
And then somehow the virus almost certainly crossed over to humans at so-called wet markets. These are places all over Asia, but particularly China, where wild animals are slaughtered on site and sold for food.
I could never have imagined the animals. I've spent time in these markets. I remember one day spending a day in the Bangkok, Thailand market, and it was about a mile by a mile and a half wild big. In these tight aisles. Every animal imaginable to humans, and I swear to God there were some out of the movies, I think, that were in there. And they're all just right on top of each other.
I think this is Mother Nature's revenge.
Stephen Galster is an environmental and human rights investigator who's been campaigning for years against Asia's wet markets. Governments throughout the region claim they've shut them down because of the coronavirus pandemic. But here in Bangkok, as you'll see, we're about to go undercover to show that's simply untrue. They're in hot, squalid and cramped conditions, wild animals smuggled in from all over the world. Most new diseases infecting mankind are caused by a virus that began in a wild animal and leapt to humans in settings just like this. These animals are never together in the wild and so are vulnerable to viruses carried by each other. In these terrible conditions, those viruses can pass to the humans who handle them.
Experts say we need to do a much better job of preparedness for potential future viruses. One very simple step that experts are calling for is shutting down these live animal food markets that are all over China and other parts of Asia. These are said to be just kind of perfect breeding ground for new viruses, and we should, those should be closed down.
As part of its desperate efforts to contain coronavirus, China closed over 20,000 wet markets. But wildlife markets like this are still operating with impunity across Asia, run by organised crime syndicates.
These syndicates, we know who they are. We've been following them for years, and they're still out there, and they're not going to close down business today because China, closed down Wuhan. These are like drug dealers, you make it difficult to sell drugs in one neighborhood, they're going to move to another.
China's People's Congress voted on the 24th of February to close down all the wet animal markets in the country. Clearly, they were linked to the outbreak. Now, the whole world is still struggling, but China may be reopening these wet markets. If you thought this pandemic spells the end of China's wet markets, I'm afraid you're mistaken. China did ban them for a while, but it hasn't stopped live animal trade. A week ago, Al Jazeera reported that traders are using e-commerce platforms to sell quote-unquote wildlife products. Beijing reportedly ordered a crackdown. It banned the sale of wildlife 2 months ago. But within a few weeks, 17,000 accounts were closed. Information about 140 wildlife products was wiped off. The crackdown has not killed China's appetite for exotic animals. The Daily Mail has published another report. Their reporter visited a live animal market in southwest China in Guilin. The report claims that these traders are back in business and wild animals are up for sale again.
These they call them wet markets. Right.
Bushmeat is still very important, and there's so much of the world that's their primary food supply.
And when they say bushmeat, it's basically everything.
Everything.
Tomahon Market is home to all kinds of bushmeat, caught and hunted from the jungle. The odd selection of menu items here is the result of the Mini Hassan people never fully becoming an agricultural society.
This is my first time in this market. I notice here a lot of people eating dog. Is there any animal you think it's just not okay to eat?
Rupa-rupanya dimakan. Semuanya dimakan. So they just eat everything here.
Just everything?
Yeah. Semua dimakan, kecuali pesawat terbang. Is that everything on land can be eaten except the train?
It will come back if you open up all the wildlife markets in China again. And you can see that things always repeat itself. If it comes many years later, all the vigilance will be gone, and the effect is much bigger. All the measures that we are now taking would be so downgraded that when it comes, we will not be able to handle it because of the loss of vigilance. But if it comes earlier, then it's usually easier because now we, at least in the public health sector, we are still very concerned about emerging infectious diseases.